One mercenary, four completely different weapons, and a single unbroken take so ambitious it took the entire stunt and armory department months of rehearsal to choreograph. Every single gun Tyler Rake carries across this film is something you could realistically research, price out, and in most cases actually go buy. Today we are cataloging every one of them. From the cheapest pistol on the list to the one piece of hardware that is nowhere near as easy to own as it looks on screen. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I am your host, Ralph, and this is the show where we take the guns your favorite characters carry and tell you what they would genuinely cost, whether you could legally own one, and whether they are actually worth chasing down for your own collection. Movie overview. Extraction follows Tyler Rake, a burnt-out black market mercenary hired to pull the kidnapped son of an imprisoned crime lord out of Dhaka, a mission that unravels almost immediately into a citywide manhunt. Chris Hemsworth carries the entire film physically, and the production leaned hard into that, hiring Sam Hargrave, a career stunt coordinator making his directorial debut, specifically because he wanted the action to feel tactile and grounded rather than stylized. That decision produced the film's signature achievement, an extended sequence built to look like one continuous, unbroken shot through a car chase, a building assault, and a rooftop escape, choreographed alongside a real former special operations advisor to keep the gun handling honest throughout, right down to how characters transition their rifles from shoulder to shoulder, around cover the way an actual operator would. Produced by the Russo brothers fresh off directing some of the biggest Marvel films ever made, the movie became one of Netflix's biggest original hits on release, reportedly one of the most watched titles in the platform's history within its first month. And it spawned a 2023 sequel that brought Rake back for another mission after a finale that left his fate deliberately ambiguous. Across both films, Rake's Loadout tells a real story about what a professional actually reaches for when a job stops going according to plan, starting simple and getting progressively more specialized as the stakes climb. Why Rake's Loadout actually makes sense. It is worth pausing on why the production bothered building three completely different, mechanically distinct rifles for one character, instead of just handing him the same gun for the whole runtime. Rake's equipment upgrades exactly when the mission does. A lean, quiet build for a job that was supposed to be simple. A full-featured combat rifle once everything falls apart. And finally, whatever he can physically grab once planning stops mattering entirely and pure survival takes over. That progression mirrors real special operations doctrine more closely than most action films bother to, where the gear you start a job with and the gear you end it with are rarely the same thing. And it is exactly the kind of realistic detail that separates a film built with a genuine military advisor from one that just wanted the guns to look intimidating on a poster. The Glock 17, Rake's backup. Rake's sidearm through most of the first film is about as unglamorous as it gets. A standard Glock 17, the same polymer-framed 9mm that has been the default sidearm for police and military forces across dozens of countries since the 1980s. There is a reason a mercenary this experienced still defaults to it. It is boringly, relentlessly reliable, and when a job depends on a rifle that might get lost, dropped, or taken away in the middle of a firefight, emphatic that pistol on the hip is the one piece of equipment you genuinely cannot afford to have jam. It also happens to be one of the most heavily documented, most widely trained pistols on the planet, which means Rake would have had zero learning curve reaching for one under stress, a small, realistic detail that a lot of action films skip in favor of something flashier. The real gun could not be easier to find. A brand new Glock 17 typically runs somewhere between $550 and $650 at almost any gun shop in America, and it remains one of the single most produced handguns on Earth, meaning parts, magazines, and holsters are never in short supply, and finding a gunsmith who already knows the platform inside and out is never a challenge either. A standard background check is the only thing standing between you and one. No waiting period in most states. No special license required. Verdict, the cheapest, easiest, most sensible purchase on this entire list, and honestly one of the best first handguns anyone could reasonably buy. Professional mercenary or brand new first-time gun owner alike. Rake's opening rifle, the custom BCM. For the film's early action, Rake carries a heavily customized BCM rifle, an AR pattern built fitted with a suppressor, a holographic sight paired with a magnifier for quick, close, and mid-range transitions, and an offset laser for low light work. This is not an off-the-shelf rifle. It is a purpose-built kit assembled from a handful of respected AR component makers, and it reads on screen exactly like what a private military contractor would actually spend their own money putting together, rather than whatever a studio prop department happened to have sitting in a closet. BCM in particular has built its reputation among serious shooters specifically because its rifles are built to run hard for years without babying, the kind of dependable, no-drama platform a professional would trust with their life, rather than something purely for looks. Piece by piece, this is genuinely buildable. A quality AR pattern rifle from a reputable manufacturer typically starts somewhere around $1,100 to $1,400, and a holographic sight with a flip-to-the-side magnifier adds another $600 to $900 on top of that, with a quality offset laser sight adding a few hundred more depending on the brand. The suppressor is the part that takes real patience. The same ATF Form 4 process, $200 tax stamp, and months long. Weight we have covered on this channel before applies here too, and it is worth remembering that every rifle suppressor sold today has to clear that exact same federal hurdle, regardless of which gun it ends up attached to. All in, a faithful build lands somewhere in the $3,000 to $4,000 range once the suppressor clears, which is a serious investment. But every single component is something a civilian can walk through the legal process to own without needing any special license beyond what the suppressor itself already requires. Verdict? Expensive and paperwork heavy because of the suppressor, but every other piece of this rifle is standard, well-documented gear that plenty of serious civilian shooters already own pieces of. And none of it requires anything close to the specialized access a real production armory needs. Intermission. Quick pause before we get to the final rifle and the one item on this list that is genuinely a headache to own. If you caught which rifle Rake switches to for the film's famous long-take sequence without me telling you, drop a comment. I am curious how many of you know your ARs well enough to spot the swap mid-scene. Rake's finale rifle, the Daniel Defense M4. Once Rake's first rifle gets left behind mid-chase, he transitions to a Daniel Defense M4 pattern rifle for the film's centerpiece sequence, fitted with a magnified optic, a smaller reflex sight mounted for fast close-range work, a suppressor, and a weapon light for the increasingly dark stairwells the sequence moves through. Daniel Defense has built a reputation as one of the most respected names in the entire AR pattern market, known for tight tolerances and genuinely excellent accuracy straight out of the box, which is exactly the kind of dependable platform a production would trust for its most technically demanding sequence, one where a malfunction on camera could ruin an entire day of incredibly difficult choreography. A Daniel Defense rifle in this configuration is not a budget purchase. The rifle itself typically starts somewhere around $1,800 to $2,200 depending on the exact model. And once you add a genuine magnified combat optic and a quality secondary reflex sight, you are easily another $1,500 to $2,000 deep before the suppressor even enters the conversation. A dedicated weapon light adds another $200 to $400 on top of that. Total everything up with the same tax stamp and waiting period the previous rifle required, and you are looking at a build that can comfortably clear $5,000 once everything is legally in hand, easily the single most expensive legitimate purchase we have priced out on this entire channel so far. Verdict, the most expensive legitimate purchase on this list, and a genuine step up in both cost and paperwork from Rake's opening rifle, but still entirely achievable for a patient civilian willing to save up and wait out the process. The one that isn't simple, the AKM. Partway through the chaos, Rake briefly picks up an AKM from an enemy combatant, the same rugged, unmistakable silhouette carried throughout the film, a criminal sitting near a doorway early on, and numerous Bangladeshi SWAT officers and soldiers equipped with it during the film's larger firefights. Unlike Rake's own carefully built rifles, this one represents genuine battlefield opportunism. Grab whatever still has ammunition in it and keep moving. A detail the film gets right that a lot of action movies skip in favor of every character, conveniently always having the perfect weapon on hand. Here's where this episode's buying guide hits its first real wall. An actual original Select Fire AKM is a fully automatic military rifle, and under the same 1986 registry freeze we covered in our Breaking Bad episode, new machine guns cannot be added to civilian ownership at all. A genuine transferable AKM, if you could even find one on the registry, would require the full NFA process and a price tag that could run tens of thousands of dollars for a rifle this common in its original military form. A strange irony given how cheap and mass-produced this exact design has always been everywhere else in the world. What almost every civilian shooter actually buys instead is a semi-automatic AK pattern rifle, Visually near identical, mechanically similar, but firing one round per trigger pull rather than in bursts, which honestly covers the vast majority of what draws people to this platform in the first place. The rugged reliability and the unmistakable silhouette. Those semi-automatic versions are widely available, typically running somewhere between $600 and $1,100 depending on the manufacturer and country of origin, with nothing more than a standard background check required. No tax stamp, no waiting period beyond the ordinary process. Verdict: the rifle in the film is the one piece of hardware you cannot legally replicate exactly in its original select fire form, but the semi-automatic civilian version delivers the same look and a huge amount of the same feel for a fraction of the cost and none of the federal paperwork the True article would demand. So there is Tyler Rake's complete loadout. One pistol nearly anyone could buy this week, two rifles that only take money and patience with federal paperwork, and one weapon that is genuinely off limits in its true form, no matter how deep your pockets are. With emphasis, add up every legitimate purchase on this list: pistol, both rifles, both suppressors, and the semi-automatic AK stand-in. And you are looking at something in the range of $9,000 to $10,000 to build Tyler Rake's entire loadout from the ground up, legally, patiently, and one ATF form at a time. Pause. That is a genuinely useful number to have in your head next time someone tells you a mercenary's gear would be impossible for a regular person to ever actually own a piece of. If there is another film's entire arsenal you want cataloged and priced out the same way, drop it in the comments. I read every single one of them, and I am always looking for the next loadout worth breaking down piece by piece. Subscribe and turn on notifications if you want these breakdowns as they come out. And share this with anyone who has watched that one-shot sequence a dozen times and never once wondered what all of it would actually cost to build for real. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.